Okay, sorry for that. This one is actually like a continuation of the previous in connection to composite data types. So let me again introduce this one as a new video. So for this one, we are talking about trying to understand writing a composite data type or using or working with composite data types. Now, what are composite data types? These composite data types are data types that takes up or that holds multiple values, which is unlike the scalar data types. These composite data types are actually subdivided into two sections. One, we have the PL/SQL records. Remember, these are types, or they are sections, or they're sub types. PL/SQL record are basically meant to retrieve multiple records, but of different data types. And I think I've explained it on the other video, the previous video. So since they have different data types, remember a record. If it's a record of employees table, if you remember employees table, you are able to capture first names, last name, hire date, salary, and all those takes up different data types. So you can actually ensure that if you want to display different records or different records of different data types of a specific employee or multiple employees, then you can use PL/SQL records. Whereas on the other hand, we have PL/SQL collections. These are basically used to retrieve multiple records of similar data, multiple records of similar data. So this means that we can decide to capture 10 employees records, but this time around, we are only targeting the first names. So that means all the first names will take up a character or voucher to data type. Now, when it comes to the examples of each one, number one, when you talk about PL/SQL records, we have some examples. Number one, if I can just put us, okay. One, we have something called the table-based, let's say table-based record. Number two, we have Casa-based record. And number three, we have user-defined records. Now, with this, you see that we have the three types. If I can go to this other part, number two, for PL/SQL collections, we also have three types. Number one, we have something called associative array, or in other words, you can call it index by tables. Number two, you have something called the array, and then number three, you can have something called the nested tables. You see, you can have something called the nested tables. So all these are types of collections. These are different, the three types of collections. So they differ. So we'll actually look at them each one. And on PL/SQL records, you can see that we also have like the three: table-based record, Casa-based record, and user-defined records. So what happens is when you talk about the table-based record, this is based on a table. We are trying to capture some records based on a table. And this one is not actually going to give us a true definition of what a PL/SQL record is as far as retrieving multiple data is concerned, but we're going to have a clue of what is happening. Now, when it comes to the Casa-based record, this is now when we will talk about how to fully capture multiple records. And remember, we did in our previous video, we did an introduction to SQL Casa. So we will be in a position to apply one of them, the SQL Casa attributes, whether the implicit ones or the explicit ones. So I want us to talk about how can we execute the three types of what? PL/SQL based records. So this is where now this video is important. So first of all, I want you to go through it first of all, and then we will come and discuss it the way you guys have seen it. So we are going to start with the first one, which is table-based record. Table-based record. We're going to start with the first one, which is table-based record. Now, when we talk about table-based record, we are talking about a type of record where we can generate a row or a record. But in this case, before even we use this particular table-based records, we need to first of all understand what is the type of attribute. If you remember, you guys, that we said that we have the percent type. And percent type means that if you are not sure of the data type that is related to a specific column or attached to a specific column, you can just use percent type. But here you have to use the name of the table in connection to the column name, and then of course percent type. That automatically gives you, or automatically tells the system that assign a data type for me. But in this case, when we're using the table-based records, we are introducing something else called the row type. Percent row type. So percent row type is an attribute, and this enables a programmer, or this enables you to create table-based and Casa-based records. It enables you to create table-based and Casa-based records. So let me just show you how we can display or how we can use this. So number one, ensure that you set server output on. Of course, for my case, it's still on. So let me just engineer it. And then I'm going to declare. So here it means that we're supposed to come up with an attribute. So here, not an attribute of record data type. So let me just use emp_rec. Remember, this is a name. I'm only using emp for employees, _rec for records. And we use employees percent row type. Remember, initially, I was using, like, for example, in the previous, especially the anonymous block, if I am not sure of the data type, I was to give, let's say, the F name, and then put employees.first_name percent type. For this one, you're talking about the record. So we are supposed to apply the row type. Now, moving forward, press enter, and then come to begin. Then from there, select star. Select star. So I'm not talking about a specific word. I am not talking about a specific row now. Remember, even the way I've declared the variable, it's not specific, like it's not more attached to a specific column. It's actually generally attached to a table. So select star into emp_rec from employees, where, but this time round, I am restricted again. I'm restricted to use the where clause. I'm restricted to use the where clause. But still, if I choose to, I think we will actually look at the Casa based. Let me just use the where, so that in Casa based we can now apply the we can restrict not to use the where clause. So for this case, let me just use where employee ID. Remember, I said when using the table-based records, this does not actually give us a true definition of what a record is. It does not actually give us a true definition of what a record is. But at least you can see that we are able to capture so many records, that means so many details, and of course star means all the columns, and then push it to one particular variable, which is emp_rec. So let me just use 126. And then from there, I will now come and use the DBMS. So now I will state, what am I interested to know about who? about an employee whose employee ID is 126, since all the details have been captured here. Remember, have in mind this name, emp_rec. So here you can talk about, let me give us the statement. Let's say employee, okay, we give it employee ID. Let's say employee ID. And paste. Okay. I think still I'll capture the pipe simple. Copy. Okay, paste. And then let me talk about what now. This is an area, another special area to understand. So this one I'm going to talk about. You see, we have this emp_rec. Since all the information here has been pushed to emp_rec, then I have to use emp_rec dot employee ID. You see? Now the second part now comes. I want the employee name. Here I can just use the same thing. With the emp_rec, I can just give it, let's say first_name. I can capture, let's say salary, and then here it means that the employee salary, and press enter. So let's capture the two, the three, not the two, but the three. From here, I will come and do what? End, and put that and press enter. DBMS, oh, sorry. I think we have, the error is coming from the DBMS part. Sorry, let me just put that, put that. DBMS should be DBMS underscore output, yeah. Okay. Output. Yeah, output. And then end. Look at that. So this one is a table-based record. Now what I've done, remember, I've actually attached. I'm talking about the percent row type, which is actually an attribute used in table-based. Now, if you look at this, I've actually successfully managed to put select star into what? Into emp_rec, regardless of how many columns do we have. You remember we have employee ID, first name, last name, salary, hire date, commission PCT. We have a lot. So it means that now all the information related to this particular employee has been captured in this particular record, which is actually emp_rec. So what happens is whenever you want to capture employee's ID or employee ID, then you have to involve emp_rec.employee ID, emp_rec.first_name, emp_rec.salary. And this is exactly how you bring up the table-based. This is how you bring up the table-based. Now, on the second part, I want us to look at the Casa-based record. The Casa-based record, now this has to be initiated. Remember, I said that we still have a chapter on SQL Casas, but at least we've made some introduction to what a Casa is. At least we've made some introduction to what a Casa is. So in this scenario, we're going to apply what we call the Casa-based records. So to cover the Casa-based records, we have to start from the word declare. And then start with the keyword Casa. Now, the keyword Casa, give a name to this Casa. Let me call C1. This is the name of my Casa. and then is. Then from this point, we are supposed to capture all data. So here I'll just say select star from employees. Here now we don't have what? We don't have the where clause. So it means that this particular statement is equals to C1. So if you talk about C1, you're talking about select star from employees. Then from there, we need to create a record variable. So here I will talk about emp underscore rec. Remember, this one is different from the other one. And then I will talk about the C1. So we need now to attach the percent. So I will talk about C1% row type. So it's supposed to take a data type, because remember, select star. Star means all the columns, and all these columns have different data types. So how can we combine them? We can combine them by using the row percent, the percent row type. So we are talking about, let this particular variable, record variable, take up the data type of all. Let it contain, or let it have all the data types of all the columns that are there in. From there, we have to begin. And this is now how the Casa is. So you declare the Casa by using Casa C1. Then you open the Casa, open C1. And by opening, don't put a, ensure that you have that name. Ensure that you have the name. From there, we need to create a loop, and then fetch. So we want to fetch the Casa into now what? We want to fetch this Casa into embrec. So fetch. So type fetch C1 into emp underscore rec. C1 into emp rec. So I want you to follow it slowly by slowly. Now, then exit when? Exit is the conditional. Exit when. So what is the exit condition? Exit when C1% not found. Now look at this. Here it means that by the previous video, or the previous session we had about introducing SQL Casas, this is the importance of it. When C1% not found, remember C1 contains all the details of all the employees, or all the number, or all the records of all the employees. So we know automatically that in employees table, we have 107 employees. So what happens is, if we are trying to fetch all the values or all the records in employees tables, this particular Casa-based record should stop or should exit when no more record is being captured. So we are talking about when C1% not found. That is the information I'm trying to drive in. Then from there, we need now to capture the information. Let's say we are interested now at capturing the two, let's say information, let's say DBMS underscore output dot put underscore line into bracket. This one now, let me just have the first one. So we are talking again about what? The embrec. So let me choose embrec dot first underscore name, and then name. And then for this case, let me find again. Okay. Then, so here we can talk about emp underscore rec dot, let's say the first name and the salary. First name and the salary. And then since we have loop here, we are supposed to end loop. So anytime you start the loop, or anytime you have a loop, ensure that you close that loop by ending. Then from there, end, and press enter. Look at that. So now the question has been answered of how can I display multiple records in the database? The answer is by using a PLSQL record. Now, which type of PLSQL record? It is actually the Casa-based record where I can select, although you can just use all the three types. But the most important thing is actually the Casa-based record because you're able to refer to a table. Although even the table-based, you're able to refer to a table. But remember, you can only do you can only search for a specific employee. So by doing this, this is how you do it. So for your case, you can try a different format, but you can still end up at what we have. Now that brings us to the last one. This brings us to the last one, and this is the user-defined records. Now, for the user-defined records, this allows you to define the different record structures, which consist of different fields, and you can base it on any information. So for this case, suppose you want to track the type of animals. Suppose you want to track the types of animals that you have. How can you do it? How can you do it? So for this case, let us just use the user-defined records because this one we cannot connect it to any table, but we can just make some reference to it. So how can we come up with the user-defined records? Okay, so to come with the user-defined records, we need to first of all use the term declare. And we are supposed to start with the type. So here I can call it animal. So the name of our user-defined record is animal. And then after mentioning that, we can say is record. Type animal is record. This one is a keyword, and this one's a keyword. So let me just put this one. Anything in caps is a keyword. So let me just put this in lowercase. Type animal is record. And then from that, don't put a semicolon. Don't terminate that. Don't terminate. Now, then give a bracket. So here we need to have, let's say the animal name. Okay, we can talk about name of animal. Okay, let me just use in full, but you can still, let's say animal name. This one we are supposed to have it in varchar 220, comma, let's say animal title. We can give it varchar 220. You see how it's being declared. It's totally a different thing. So once we are done with that, just put a semicolon at the end. We are interested with only the animal name and the animal title. Now then press enter. So pressing enter, this leads to us creating a variable for this. So I will talk about animal one, and then let it take what? Animal. So I'm giving a reference that we need to specify the first animal, which is animal one. And of course, it has to take the data type of this animal. Now for simplicity, let me just do two of them. Let's say animal two. Let it take what? Animal. Animal two, let it take animal. From there, we have to begin. So what happens here after beginning, it means that I want to specify. So there are two processes here. One, you have to specify or to work on the specification. And secondly, you have to work on the printing. So how can we capture this information? So the first information is to capture is this. So I will mention animal one, because I want to start from animal one. I will talk about animal one dot animal name underscore name full colon equals to, and then let's say it is chicken. You see, animal one dot animal name is chicken. Then the same thing, animal1 dot animal title. This one we can give it as poultry. So it's a chicken, that is the name. The title is the poultry. That is what we refer to as specification. Now, number 2, we can have the same thing. Now I'm referring to animal 2. Animal 2, let's say cow. Then the same thing, animal 2 title. Group of cows, I don't know, let me have it as cattle. You see? So what I've done here, I've managed to perform specification. This is purely what we refer to as specification. So don't worry, I've actually pressed like some spaces here. Don't worry about that. It will still work out. Now, so what we are interested here is now to display. So I will just come and say dbms underscore output dot put underscore line into bracket. So I want to have animal1 dot animal underscore name. See, animal1 dot animal underscore name, and then animal2. So this one you can just bring title. Now, again, I need number 2, and then I need the title for the second. Okay, for the second. So now with this, if we press enter, we are done. We are done with this. So what happens is I need now to come and terminate. Look at this. So here it means that the first one, this one, animal1, is connected to these two. And the output is this. The second one, which is this, is connected to these specifications. And then it's connected to this output. So what we need to do now is to end and put that and press enter. Look at that. So we have chicken, we have poultry, we have cow, we have cattle. And this is referred to as the user-defined records. User-defined records. So this is the code. This is the code for the user-defined records. This is the code for the user-defined records. Yeah. So in our next class, we're going to work with this physically, probably to see whether you've done something or not. But I want you to test it on different values, use different values, try to maneuver through, especially in understanding the PLSQL records. Leave alone the collections. We'll still come and talk about it in the next class. But in this case, I want you to understand how can we write down the table-based records, the Casa-based records, and the user-defined records. So up to there, I will stop and ensure you go through the 2 videos. So thank you and see you on the next class.